That U-Bowl had a place on the water up there and moved to Cowichan Bay 4 years ago. The last 20 years, the CVRD has done nothing to protect the lake up there. Those of us who tried to stop the development, we were poo-pooed and had were put down, in fact. Now they're looking at the U-Bowl mill site. I don't know if you know this, but they're planning to build about 2,000 houses on the U-Bowl mill site. Cowichan Lake is the largest source of fresh water on southern Vancouver Island. It's being polluted.
That's kind of misleading though, because for every square foot of ground that you cover up, either a driveway, road, house, a sidewalk, anything, you've got to do something with that water. So they build retention ponds. They call them fancy names, like, but in actual fact, and then those, they feed directly from there, so it picks up everything off the roads, picks up everything out of the lawns, picks up everything that's there, and then they shoot that straight, because they've lined these things in the bottom, so they never go anyplace. They shoot that straight off to the watershed or to the lake, and they call that a planned housing development. This is how we're going to take care of this. We're a mile away from the lake, so we can't possibly hurt the lake.
That's what the major problem is. I think our regulatory bodies have to tighten the zoning, permits, and licenses, and how the buildings are being built. That has to be, they have to change. There is no way, like say, as the gentleman said, Cowichan Lake, Shawnigan Lake, Soup Lake, these are probably the most important freshwater source for southern Vancouver Island. Unless we act now, tighten the regulation of building zones, we are going to lose those ecosystems.
We're here today because, I hate to admit this, but the land use planning system is fragmented, as has been shown here already. It's not one unit that is looking at it in a responsible manner. They all look at it in a piecemeal approach. For example, we're talking about the banning of the boats. The CVRD cannot do that. The province cannot do that. That's up to the federal government because of their rules and regulations through the Navigable Waters Act. The province has certain rules and regulations that they have to play by. And one of them being is that we, through the Local Government Act, can only do certain things when it comes to land use plans. We're only allowed to look at certain things. This input-output analysis that we're talking about, it's a good tool. It does a lot. So does a cost-benefit analysis. When you're looking at it, what are the costs and what are the benefits that you look at it? You can take it all the way back. We can only go so far because of the legislation through the Local Government Act. So the closest thing that we can have to try to make sure that all the agencies are working in one direction is a memorandum of understanding, which is just basically a piece of paper that says, this is what we're going to try to achieve. We understand we have our rules and regulations. We're going to overcome that, and we're all going to work together and have a group of people sit down at the table and talk about these land use plans. And I think one of the closest models that we've got that's working so well at this particular point in time is the Fraser Basin Council. They seem to be doing quite well. I understand that they've been out to gentleman's name, Mark Angelo. They've been doing a lot of good work with Mr. Angelo in that capacity, but it's not a perfect system yet. But it's because they work all the way up from the mouth of the Fraser River all the way up through the Fraser River. It goes all the way around. It's not a perfect system, but it's a closed system. But unfortunately, as I said, it's a piecemeal system that we have right now at this particular point in time. And this meeting this evening just highlights those issues that we have to address. For example, we were talking earlier, there was a sewage plant that was allowed to go into the hill, into the watershed area. We, the CVRD, were not asked if we would allow it. The province said it's going to happen. The only thing we were allowed to determine was whether or not it's a public utility or a private utility. The province already made the decision for us that it was going to happen. Now the only decision that we had after that was, do we want to paint it red or do we want to paint it blue? So this is what we're talking about. There's lots of examples that we've got here that we have to work on. Some of the things you have to start, I would encourage you to start doing about this is contact the UBCM, contact your local MLAs, and we can start petitioning the provincial government to start changing some of our rules, how we approach things. They tell us that we are the land use planners, but they restrict what we can do. We're not allowed to go outside of that, because if we do, we've overstepped our jurisdiction, and we could end up being sued because of that. But on the good note, one of the things we are looking at from the CVRD, we've considered all of these issues, and we've resurrected the South Sector Liquid Waste Management Plan, which means that we're going to be looking at the sewage disposal system for the entire south portion of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. And we have initiated for $75,000, we're starting a water study.
Sorry, does that mean you're looking at putting in a sewage system that everybody would be hooked up to?
That's what the South Sector
Yes.
Liquid Waste Management Plan will be looking at, yes.
So all of the people on the lake and septic fields would then be joined in on a...
Over the plans of life, yes, but unfortunately it started in Mill Bay, and it's going to be going up that way, and then we're kind of a secondary cousin.
So even though our watershed is more important to protect, let's get this started in Mill Bay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
It's also the ability to charge new developers for the infrastructure. So you start where the new development is.
Start with the new development. One of the things too, sadly, about this is this South Sector Liquid Waste Management Plan was completed a long time ago, and it was turned down because a lot of the residents in the area at the time said it was too expensive and there was no benefits. So this is just a resurrection of the plan that happened a number of years ago. So this is not a new plan. So it's just coming back to the surface again because it is time. We have a lot of private utilities that don't take into account the overall impacts. For example, we have the Comptroller of Water that looks at issues a bunch of licenses and permits for private utility private utility companies to do their intake of water. At the same time, we still have a bunch of people that are on wells. And then we also have like little strata councils that have their own water systems. So it's a piecemeal approach. So what we've also done is we've started to look at the CBRD level of taking over all of these small little units with the bigger picture in mind, taking over the larger systems or making it into a larger system. So it's a slow issue. It's unfortunately it's on a piecemeal basis, and we really need your assistance to get the rules and regulations changed so that we can look at it on a bigger, more comprehensive scale.
Can I ask you a question? What's the difference between CRD and CBRD in terms of legislative power or mandates?
Municipal entities.
Okay.
They're both regional districts,
Okay.
but they were able to move ahead quicker on the water issue than we ever did.
And they have their cities and larger electoral districts, whereas in the South Cowichan there are electoral areas. So there's two levels of municipal government in South Illinois.
Well, one of the things that I've been arguing for the last several years, well, not arguing actually, advising the government on, is that a small water system, not only in British Columbia, across Canada, are at greatest risk because they do not have the expertise, they do not have the resources to do any monitoring or surveillance or assessment, nothing. Okay? And these are the systems like Walkerton happened. Those are the size of water systems that are at crisis. Now, how do you improve that? You can develop regional water authorities, like CBRD. You have many more responsibilities. What I was suggesting is that just have water authorities, regional water authorities, and all these small systems will be under a regional water authority so that it will have resources, it will have expertise, it will have management skill, and it will have teeth, you know?
Yeah, but we're not there